Hi guys, this is Girish back with another very special guest for me because I have been following him from a long time, and he has always been cordial and supportive to whatever request I have had online, on Twitter, and through emails also. And for me, he is someone who understands the SaaS space well and also the business space of online business really well. Rajan from Upekkha, and he heads Upekkha along with Prasanna. And I think this discussion is going to be interesting and learning for me as an individual where I am building my own business, and also to others who are starting their business or been in their journey for a small duration who have started just now. Rajan, welcome and thank you so much. And it's really an honor to have you as a guest on this show, a very tiny show of mine called 5 Minute MicroSaaS. Thank you so much. So, if possible, if you could explain briefly about you in one liner who you are, it would help the audience a lot.
Thanks, Girish. Thanks for having me. I'm one of the co-founders of Upekkha. We are three partners, Prasanna, Shekhar, and me, started in 2016. Most founders refers to us as we are Y Combinator for Indian SaaS founders that are building global business.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, yeah, thank you so much. My question to you was only on one topic today. It's much more like we are seeing a lot of changes in the market with respect to technology, how approaches are going all about. And we have seen different phases in the last 4 years, like pre-COVID, COVID, and what is happening now. And then there is a burst of technology stacks also in the market. So my question to you is, from a SaaS per se, or an industry in SaaS industry per se, where a starter is looking at a market, how should they tell a story in the right manner, where they attract customers in this ever-changing world, and also try to be focused on what they want to get out of their business, even though it is very clear that we should solve a problem for a customer. There is so many companies, so many apps, so many tools being built because of this rapid change name called AI, which is happening now. So how should a starter, founder who is starting out should approach a storytelling in this market? If you could share your points, it would really help us a lot.
Sure, Girish. So one is, I think, how to tell a story, but, I will take 30 seconds, maybe 60 to stress on why to tell a story. Okay. Most of SaaS founders, your audience, many people that I work with, they're all engineers. And as engineers, they start out and then they say, hey, look, I can also build a SaaS startup. There is a small problem that I saw, maybe I can build a tool around that. That's how they get started. One of the things that, as engineers, I've been an engineer 20 years ago. I did my computer sciences engineering. And when I also started out, was very blind to what is known as the broad topic of marketing. Very quickly, I will say marketing is this, like a friend of mine, he says this nicely. It is like, it is the job of the marketing is to bring the horse to the water, and where water is your product, right? So you have to do something to bring people to, what is it that you're offering? You may think that you're creating the best quality water, best tasting water, but unless the horse comes to the water, nobody is going to drink the water, right? So the job of marketing is to be able to do that. And marketing, in one line, if I were to say, I call that as the job of a persuasion, the job of convincing people, saying that, hey, come and check this out. It is not trying to sell the product. It's not doing sales. It is just saying, hey, just come and check out. Right? That's the job of marketing, like a casting director in the movie. They don't do the role, they don't do the direction. They just bring the characters into the movie to get them to interact with. So in that role, if you have to convince, age-old thing that we as humans have known is, if you have to convince someone, if you tell a story, it is an easier way to actually convince people. And when you tell a story, then it becomes engaging. People pay attention to you. If you take a get it type of a book, or if you take a data sheet and throw it at somebody and then say, hey, come and read this, they'll just yawn and they will just not engage with you. But if you actually say, hey, once upon a time, this is what happened and that is what happened, and then people suddenly are tuned. Our human brain is attuned to actually listen to a story. So that is the reason people say that, you need to tell a story. And the difference between any story and a marketing story is in a marketing story, you are able to actually attribute revenue to it. Hey, I said this story, and therefore I was able to move the revenue on this. But generally, any other story is only like limited to saying, was it engaging? Was it something that it created so much impact that, people changed some behaviors out of that? So those are the things that you look at it from a general perspective. Now, with that established, that, you need to do marketing, and the easiest way of doing marketing is telling a story. Now, let's talk about how to tell a story. How to tell a story. See, story has three components. It has a hero, a villain, and a tension, right? So you have to think about the hero, villain, and the tension. And the most easiest way to think about a story is actually if you nail your villain, if you nail your Ravan, right, then the story becomes very easy. However, when you are just getting started, different stories are told at the different stages of the company. When you are getting started, it may not be very clear as to what is it that you're building, who is it that you're building for, and therefore you can make the customer as the hero of the story. So those are all things that are not clear at that particular point in time. So when people are getting started, I say that you should tell what I refer to as origin story. Why did you get started? What did you do? Right? And there are many stories. I mean, there are I can actually give you examples of three stories. One is something that I was discussing with the founder yesterday, and then there are two more that I've often referred to, right? So let me first tell you the story of the startup that I was discussing yesterday called Enthu.ai. So you should look at their website. In your about us section, you will see the founder has written why did he start Enthu.ai, and he says, I am Tushar Jain and I did so and so. I first built a SaaS product, right? And then COVID happened, right? And because of COVID, I was remote, right? And then what happened is that I was so frustrated, I didn't know what kind of conversation my reps are having with my prospects, right? And so I had to know how this particular thing is going. And then he looked around and then he said, hey, how do I solve it? They were sending him bulky recorded files. He was not able to go through it. And he's like, look, let me look around tools that can help me solve this. And he saw that there were tools, but all of them were bulky, 20 years old, and extremely priced. And he said, man, I need to do something about it. Right? Then he said, this led me to actually build Enthu.ai, which is like an alternative to Callminer or alternative to a company called Observe.ai, which helps me help a salesperson who wants to monitor, a sales manager to monitor in terms of how the calls are happening. Either a sales manager or a customer success manager or somebody who's running a call center to evaluate how these calls are happening. So this to me is a perfect origin story. The hero in this is the founder. He had a tension. There was an arc that was following. And then he said, look, this tension that happened, so I had to do something about it. So he got pressed for that. And then he said, okay, let me look at alternates and then let me actually build something for this, right? So in this case, it is an origin story. And when you tell a story like this, right, a job of marketing is actually to create recall. But one of the job of marketing also is to build credibility. And when you tell an origin story, you build a tremendous amount of credibility and saying, hey, who is this person? What is he doing? Why is he doing? And people are like, oh, I'm going to get attracted to it. Let me give you another example, right? I often give this example of Kubera. Kubera is a friend called Rohit Nadani. He built and sold 2 startups before, and he started this. And if you go to his About X section, right, he'll again say that, one day he was swimming, right, and he got caught in a tide. And then he momentarily had this feeling that he may not be around. I mean, he may die, right? And then at that particular point in time, that the things that were flashing back in his head was like, what will happen to my family, right? And the thing that he remembered was, oh my God, this bank account and that document that I have kept it across in multiple places. I have not even kept it in a single place. But he survived that incident. And then he came back and said, look, I need to sort of create some system where all my assets are stored in a certain way, in a certain place. And if something happens to me, then it becomes easy for this to be transitioned from me to the family. That led him to build Kubera, right? And he says, in Kubera, you can also put all kinds of assets like, FD, a savings bank account, etc., etc. And also you can include the crypto assets that you have. You can store it in one place. And then there is a mechanism that is set that, it can actually be translated to the family member if something happens to him. Let me give you another story, right? And this is something that I heard from Sai, who was the first marketer at Freshworks. And he often tells this story, how Freshworks got started, right? So when Freshdesk was initially launched, they were not like, okay, here is a product and here are features. So here are the things that you can do. Instead, they launched Freshdesk with the following story. Girish, the founder, had come back from US, and while the house items were getting transported, a Samsung TV developed some issue. It broke. So Girish, in his past life, has built a lot of help desk software. Right? I mean, he was earlier at Zoho, and then what this led to is that he said, okay, let me reach out to the customer support and then see if they will solve. So he called up, and then it was a very complicated conversation with all the support agents. And then after a week, he gave up, and then he wrote on social media, on Twitter, saying at Samsung in, and then said that this is the problem. Then within 24 hours, he got a call back, and then the issues were addressed. That led him to build Freshdesk, which was a help desk software but was integrated with social. Right? Because the insight for him is like, look, when the support tickets are integrated with the conversations that are coming through Twitter and social, led him to have a better engagement with the people who are running help desk. And he said, look, I have built a tool like this. I've built 3 tools like this before, but I have built this tool, which has the first tool, help desk tool, which has social media integrated very well. This is how they launched the story. So if you look at all these 3 stories, Girish, it is the founder's origin. He had a tension, and that problem that he's defining is the villain in this. And he's like, I built this tool to conquer that villain. So any founder who are just getting started out, they should not think about the value story, in which where you understand the value of the customer and you say, like, how are you helping the customer become from a Mario to a Super Mario. When you have that understanding, you can tell that story. But when you're starting out, you should tell an origin story like this. I'm going to pause here and see where we should double click further on.
No, this was really, I was just grasping and I was stressed trying to absorb, because all the individuals whom you have pointed out, I have somehow stumbled on some of the articles or some information about them. That's true. I mean, like, in any way, yeah, this is insightful. But having said that, even from a usage of technology, if you could share some pointers, like, yeah, we all are engineers. I am also an engineer, so I just get attracted towards, let us solve it in this manner using this technology stack, so that this becomes a buzz, which is the way what we are riding. So should we even take care of that also when we are telling the story, or we just have to be much more basic in the approach, because it is much more like, I can relate to this problem and I can state it well through my eyes, rather than using any jargons or buzzwords in the market currently?
Sure. So that's a great question. So Girish, what I was actually initially focusing on is what is called the origin story. Somebody getting started and they don't have much understanding of like what is happening in the market. But if you have much understanding in the market, then you can change your story structure. Right? You can focus on a different way of telling the story. I normally suggest every startup to have 3 stories. One is a origin story, another is a value story, another is a purpose story. Origin stories is what you would use when you're just getting started. Value stories is where you have an understanding about your customer, their life, their environment, what is changing, and what is the point of view that you are taking to help them navigate that particular change, and how you can create value in their life, right? So the focus will be on that value story. The third aspect of the story is a purpose story, which is a very generic story. In that, you actually say, why did you get started? Because this is the type of story which is going to have a lot of overlap with the origin story. But the purpose story is you will feel that a lot of people will support you, whether it is investors or press, or whether it is employees that they want to join you, when they know that you have a larger than life mission, right? If I were to take the purpose story, one of the ways that Girish talks about is saying that Freshworks will be the company that will usher India into the product nation at the global league, and that motivates a lot of people. That leads people to come and say, hey, this is like a great company that I want to be associated with, I want to be working with. So that is a purpose story, right? So on the value story, um, this is a very well-known simple framework, which is called as the Froto framework, which means from to, right? If you look at any good story, it is always going to frame things in terms of, this is where you were from, which was the problem space. This is where you are going towards to, which is where the solution space. you actually think about old biblical stories, like, from a land of misery to a promised land, right? So if you notice the word from and to is there, so that is why FROTO, froto, right? So you always want to look at what are the changes that are happening in the market, right? And why that change is happening. And because of that particular change, why you are helping people navigate that particular change, right? Sometimes it could be technology, sometimes it may not be about technology. Here, one of the best, I would say, case studies that I have looked at, that I've seen, is this Andy Raskin. He's a well-known marketer. He's shared out a blog post, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, called as the Zora slides. Zora is a competitor to, like, one of the earlier versions of ChargeBee, right? One of the earliest companies that used to build subscription billing software. There, the story that is told is called as the Froto. I mean, the framework that is used is the Froto framework. There, the focus is not about that we are a subscription billing platform. There, the focus is about saying that the world is moving from the world of transaction to subscription. The world is moving from transaction to subscription, from e-commerce to relationship, right? Then what does that mean for the world, right? And people who have embraced this have been successful. Companies like IBM, GE, and all have embraced it. And people who don't embrace it, they lose out, right? So if that is the case, then what is the most important thing for you to actually move from the world of transaction to subscription involves saying that you need to have the identity of the customer really well understood, right? And Zuora, that company, helps you build that identity. Therefore, if you use Zuora's billing platform, you will be able to move from the world of transaction to the world of subscription, or what they call as a subscription economy. So coming back to the question that you said, in terms of technology, maybe it is because of a technology, right? The change that needs to happen. One of the things that I've been talking about in the recent past is any company which has built AI before 2018, in my mind, is this like, is this going to get tossed in the flames? I mean, they're going to burn. Because what has happened is, for 2018, the changes that has happened fundamentally in research in AI, right? They all have to actually rebuild themselves using the transformer architecture. So the world is moving away from traditional AI, which has been there since 1950s to, I would say, all the way up to about 2010, 2018. That all the things that have happened before that is traditional AI. Now the world is moving towards foundational model-led AI, right? So any AI company, anybody who's actually building something, if they are not leveraging foundational model AI, they are going to lose. So there again, there is a Froto. So any company which is going to leverage AI a little bit also, or if they're impacted by little bit by AI also, have to leverage something which is based on a foundation model AI and not the old way of using, like, machine learning models, right? So the machine learning, old, even deep learning are all old, right? But this change in architecture of technology, which is foundation model based, so this would be an example, Girish, of how technology related change has been identified. There are other places that you can look at. The key thing, Girish, in this is to identify the arc of change. What is changing? Is a customer behavior changing? Is a regulation changing? Is a technology changing? Is there a total amount of competition that is changing? And one thing I want to actually bring back to the, like, original premise of where you started the discussion with, a lot of people need to tell stories today because there is a big change that is happening. 5 years ago, if you built a tool, you may have been the only tool that is there in the market, or maybe there are 3 tools, maybe there are 5 tools. But now the SaaS as an entire industry has evolved so much. Practically every category has hundreds of tools, right? If that is the case, then you need an ability to stand out. And if you need an ability to stand out, then you need to sort of build your brand, or you need to sort of differentiate. You need to be well understood, and you need to be able to be remembered in customers' mind. And you should have had crossed their credibility gap in their eyes, right? So for that, you will have to build a brand. So a lot of people who will actually succeed, the old world of just focusing on product and features. So the world of SaaS is moving from, like, differentiated products to differentiated brands. That is, there is another photo. And if you want to go away from differentiated products to differentiated brands, you need storytelling.
So yeah, everything, whatever you are saying, it's like right on point. But to even get a grasp of it, the kind of knowledge what a person has to have should be really like, he should really understand the problem, he should understand the market, he should understand the customer, then they should understand their own limitations in terms of what they can achieve, and then tell a story, because that's more relatable to them, because otherwise they might even lose the narrative as a whole when they are trying to progress in building their product. And I think we have ran out of time, but yeah, interesting points. I could go on with respect to all the questions what I have, but yeah, we really touched high level, but I think there is much more to learn beyond what has been actually shared here from your side. But thank you for your time. But before we wrap this up, if you want to state anything to the founders starting and trying to be part of this next wave of product application tools building, anything you want to share, please do that.
I just underline what you said, right? The aspect of you need to have in-depth understanding. What I have seen is that if you're not from a domain, it takes at least 2 years for you to understand the domain. But the moment you understand the domain, what does understanding the domain means? Understanding the domain means understanding your persona of customers and understanding deeply how they make their purchase decision. That to me is what understanding domain means. Once you understand that, then if you have a point of view of that, when you state that point of view is what leads to story. So the most important thing to be able to do to tell really powerful stories is to build that domain understanding. And that domain understanding is something that you will have to invest in.
Right. Yeah, totally correct. And yeah, thank you so much again. Thanks a lot for your time. As I said, this is just a primer from your side, because I can go on for hours in terms of this particular topic, SaaS and other things. But thank you so much. I hope I will get another chance someday to really talk different topics with you. Thanks a lot. And yes, guys.
Thanks, Girish.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Rajan, anytime. And I'll come back with another guest next time. Thank you so much, Rajan. Thank you so much.
Bye for now.